This film, A Simple Fucking Gesture, is a dark comedy that I think will have many people relating to it. I think viewers, when they see it, they'll really think, yes, how hard is it to just give a wave? I'm looking forward to hearing what the writer and director has to tell us about his new film premiering at HollyShorts. So without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, book nerds, I'm now speaking with Jesse Shamata, the writer and director of A Simple Fucking Gesture. Thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's good to be here. Thanks.
And I do apologize if I messed up your name. I am terrible with names. So let's give you the honors, and please introduce yourself properly and tell us a little about your film.
Yeah, my name is Jesse Shamata, and I am the writer-director of A Simple Fucking Gesture, which is a short comedy, dark comedy, I guess. I think you would say that if you saw it, but it's about a couple, married couple who are in traffic, presumably after work, and they're on their way home, and somebody tries to cut in front of them, and they actually let this person in, and they're shocked to find he doesn't give them a thank you wave, and then it's really just the what happens after that, after they pull over and confront this individual, and the comedy hijinks ensue.
Well, I'm sure that like myself and many, many other people out there, we can all relate to sitting in traffic and, getting cut off, or trying to, someone trying to force their way into traffic or something like that. Did that happen to you? Is that where this idea came from, or how did you come up with
Oh,
this idea?
yeah. I mean, there was a period in my life where I was, commuting, excuse me, commuting constantly, and um, yeah, it happened to me. It happened to me all the time, every variation of it, and it became something that was so I would be obsessed with it to the point where I was counting how many people, would give me a wave if I let them in. I mean, it started as me never letting somebody in, or it started with me actually letting people in, and then it started I was not getting the wave, so I thought I'm not going to let them in. And then my wife said, come on, just let them in. It's pay it forward, kind of good karma. So then I started seeing that people weren't giving me the wave. Some people were, but whenever I wasn't getting the wave, it became kind of this obsession with me to figure out what that person, who that person was, and what in my mind these kind of fantasies of what would happen if I confronted them, and you know the different scenarios that would transpire if I did actually get the chance to confront them. And I mean, for me, for this, it wasn't a violent thing, but it was more about taking something that the unexpected, and nobody who is in their car and who experiences this kind of thing all the time, which is everybody, I'm sure, who drives, never knows what's going on in the mind of that other person, the person who kind of pulls in, and why don't they give the wave. And it just kind of became this obsession for me, and I tried to take it in a to a place that was a bit more hopefully interesting from a perspective of a sociological perspective.
Gotcha. Well, I know, like I said, we all hate sitting in traffic, and whenever we let someone in and, you get the wave, at least like, okay, they acknowledged that what I did. But yeah, whenever they don't, it's like, oh, great. Like,
Yeah.
you do get really angry. I've been there many times myself, just I'm sure as other people have. So we all, like I said, we also hate sitting in traffic. Obviously, there's a lot of traffic in this film because it's following these couple. How did you go about actually getting traffic and like finding the location, and did you have people sitting in their cars for hours on end?
Well, yeah, I mean, essentially, yeah. I mean, we thought about a bunch of different ways to actually shoot the film. We thought about doing green screen and things like that. And we kind of came down to the fact that it was probably most efficient. I probably won't say this in retrospect, or I wouldn't say this in retrospect, but it was most efficient to actually shoot over one night um, in Toronto in the summer. And the problem was, and everybody's got horror stories about films and TV and the shoot, and sometimes it's more interesting than the film itself. Hopefully, in this case, it's not. But what happened was it was through a night in August last year, and it was you know, from dusk till dawn. It was a night shoot, so in the summer, you know, you got a lot of daylight and not a lot of night time, and so we were on a really tight schedule, and the challenge was hiring a bunch of background people and extras to bring their cars and line up and do this thing. And it was always a challenge getting them to, I mean, I got to say, they were the worst drivers. The background, it was painful sometimes. The worst part of it was they were falling asleep in their car. So, you know, at first they're all excited to be a part of this, and a lot of them were looking into camera, which is natural, I think, for background performers sometimes, or the inexperienced ones. But this got to a point where by 4 or 5 a.m. they were just, the traffic wasn't moving, and the lead car repeatedly was this one guy who would just fall asleep. So it became kind of a nightmare. So I don't know if I would do it the exact same way again, but it was, you know, it's definitely a challenge shutting down a street in a major city and doing this, even if it is through the middle of the night. So yeah, that was kind of worst part. The best part of it all really was the kind of freedom through the night. You know, you don't think it's hard to do a one-nighter. You're not on a rhythm or a schedule, but it was kind of freeing to be out there and have that kind of, you know, freedom to shoot through the middle of the night and have control of it all and do that.
So when it comes to filmmaking, you know, a lot of times shooting in studios or shooting during the day, you're usually trying to subtract light to make, you know, to shape the light and get the lighting you want. But at night, it's a lot less, you know, there's no sun, obviously. So it's a lot more difficult. You have to add lots of light. So I'm curious to know how you went about lighting, because low light is very hard to film in typically. And also you're using cars, which there's metal bodies, there's windows, there's reflections all over the place. So how did you go about filming this and getting the right lighting setup, but not having just reflections of lights and cameras everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a challenge, but I really relied heavily on my DP, Martin Hawks, who has really, I mean, he's great. He also has a strong background in documentary. He shot, you know, a lot of stuff for rock and roll documentaries and hip hop evolution for Netflix and things like that. So a lot of run and gun stuff. So he's really efficient with working with what he has. And in this case, it was obviously not a lot of light. So there was that aspect. And we went back and forth on whether we should shoot this during the day or at night. And he saw it more a challenge actually being shooting it through the day and kind of being subtractive with the lighting. So what we did was we used, you know, we used really fast lenses to capture as much light as we could. And we used an interesting rig on top of the car, which was using basically roof racks on a car. We have these, I forget the actual, he'll kill me if I forget all this, which I am now, but there were these almost fluorescent tubes that you can control the light temperature of.
Were they quasar tubes?
Yeah, yeah. And they're fantastic. And you know, him and Dave Conroy, my lighting genius, they were fantastic with doing that, and also creating a sense of movement still with passing lights and overheads and things like that. And once you got into the rhythm of it, doing a few takes, we had multiple cameras going, set up on the you know, on the hood and passenger and driver's side. Once you get into the rhythm of that, you know, there's a few times where yes, you're seeing things that you don't want to see, but you tweak it through the night and you start figuring out where not to stand and where to have those lights and things like that. So it was a trial by error, but we quickly adapted, and I think it turned out quite well in terms of the lighting. But it was a challenge. It's definitely a challenge, you know.
Oh, absolutely. I've been on a handful of sets myself, and it's just like, oh, we got to fill this up. No, we got to relight this. You can see a light in the corner. Or like, oh, no, you can see the camera and the reflection of the lamp in the background. We got to move that out. It's It's always got a million things you got to keep your eye on at the same time.
Yeah, and on a micro crew, on a micro budget, you're doing everybody was doing a million things at once, and things like that you just don't notice sometimes, and you have to kind of roll with it. And my editor, Chris Donaldson, who's fantastic, he edits Handmaid's Tale, among other things, but he was really astute with, the challenges and cutting around certain bogeys in the shots and things like that. So I think it turned out really well. But yeah, it's definitely, you aim for something and then you have to make compromises as you go. But I was really lucky that the performers were so on it that we didn't have to work, too hard at crafting performance, because I think they were already there going into it.
Nice. So speaking of the performers, I'm curious what to know about the casting process for the actors and actress, and also, without giving anything away, I'll let you talk about it as much or as little as you want, because I don't want to potentially give anything away. But there's definitely a little curveball that I didn't see coming. Was that always planned, or was that kind of like a last minute change, or can you speak on that a little bit?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about the same curveball, I don't know.
I'm talking about when the cars pull over, the guy who doesn't give the wave.
Right. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was planned, and that was something that we played around. We had time to rehearse this and play around in advance. We didn't have a ton of time on the night to experiment, but yeah, I think, first of all, I mean, the cast is great, and it was an easy casting process. They were friends of mine, who I've worked with, both of them, Paul Bates and Christy Bruce, who are, actors in their own right, writers and Second City performers here in Toronto, and I know they've worked in Chicago as well. So they were really good they're a real life couple, for one, which is hugely beneficial, because they could play around and rehearse this in downtime, and I didn't have to organize that, which was nice. The other part of it was that they have this already really strong rapport with each other that I think comes across on camera, and I think that it was kind of easier for them to get there because they were a real life couple. And yeah, but they still surprised me, and they still, it was rehearsed, but on the night when we were shooting, they were just still full of surprises and great stuff that they brought to it, kind of ad-libbing as we went, because you don't get a chance to call cut as much as you'd like on something like this. So it was just, once the train is kind of rolling, you kind of have to finish a take, and they were creating a lot of stuff on the go as that wasn't scripted sometimes, that really saved us. And then the kind of curveball is something that was planned, but yeah, I mean, it's something that, first of all, the gentleman playing the curveball, I guess we'll call it, is my dad, Chuck Shamata, who's a kind of an accomplished Canadian actor, has been in a lot of American stuff as well. Again, I could rely on him to bring a lot to it, and there's a shorthand that we have. We've worked together a lot in the past, and he's been a collaborator of mine for many years, and someone I can trust. So it was kind of it was kind of easy on that front in terms of casting, and knowing I brought people that I liked working with, and that's part of the battle. And then the curveball surprise, I guess, is something that was, yes, planned, but it's something that I think was about resonating beyond the typical what's going to happen when you pull over and you confront somebody, to try and make it as different as possible, and never to expect what you anticipate.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, I didn't see it coming, and definitely that's why I said curveball, because when I was first watching, I was like, oh, and he let him in something, and he was saying like, oh, like maybe there was a way, maybe there wasn't. In my mind, I was like, oh, like, because, and when I was watching, I was thinking like maybe they're going like into like at a sporting, like going to like see a show or like at a toll booth, and I'm like, oh, maybe they're gonna get there, and the guy's gonna be like, oh no, the car in front of you already paid for you guys, and they're gonna feel like such jerks,
Right,
but
right, right.
definitely it went in a direction that I didn't expect, and I really enjoyed it.
Good.
I thought the ending also was pretty good. It's like, man, such a big deal, and then what happens? Do you have a like kind of like a favorite memory or like a particular scene when filming that really stood out to you when you were filming this?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say that because it's really like it's a one scener in so many ways. Like it's a one, I wouldn't say it's one note, but it's definitely, I think for me, it's about there's a moment in the film where they do pull over to confront the person who doesn't give them the wave, and when he emerges from his vehicle, there's a moment of real genuine, I think, shock and surprise that we captured from Paul and Christy, the leads, and I think their reactions are priceless. And to see that for the first time, it was the first take that we actually ended up using, um, was fantastic. And that's when they really kind of ad-libbed and reacted to this person, unique person, in a really fun and interesting way. So when you're watching it on the night and you know the script really well, and you see something that really shocks and surprises you coming from your actors, and it's genuinely funny, even though you've been reworking the script for months and you see that happen, it's so fun and refreshing. And so that was, and then especially at 4 in the morning or whatever, it's a nice feeling to get that jolt of, oh my God, this is working. And it felt good.
So that actually was when they got that look of surprise on their face. That actually was genuine, like surprise from them.
Yeah, I mean, they knew what was coming to a certain extent, but I don't think they realized, um, certain elements of that. I can't. I mean, it's hard to give it away, but there are certain elements, and certain accoutrements on the actor that I think they were surprised, and they hadn't really seen him prior to that in rehearsal doing that. They'd read lines and they'd seen Chuck, um, prior on set, but they hadn't seen him in his wardrobe and and the like. So it just kind of was a fun surprise. And then what they brought to it, I think, in terms of dialogue was great. It wasn't scripted that way. They just kind of went for it, and I think we got the best out of them on that.
No, I absolutely agree. I thought it was very, very well done. So I know that the film is in HollyShorts, correct?
Yeah.
How's the HollyShorts experience been for you? And also, how's has it been in other festivals? How has the reception been overall?
It's been great. I mean, it's a kind of obviously it's a really strange time because I'm not nobody's going to these festivals. They're existing completely online, with the exception of the odd festival that has a drive-in experience. For example, our film was also was in Calgary, had its Canadian premiere in Calgary, and they had a in-person, a distanced, socially distanced screening, which apparently went great, as well as a couple of drive-ins it's been a part of in certain festival programs, which was really fun. I hear, but I wasn't there, obviously. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge to not be in a room and see people's reactions and know if it's working or not. I go by what my family members say about it, and they love it. But when you're in a room in a theater with strangers, it's a completely different scenario. So I really miss that, and I think most filmmakers doing the festival rounds this year are really missing out on that. But I think HollyShorts, particularly, has done an amazing job of kind of still bringing it out there and getting people engaged, in a really, really challenging scenario, challenging times. So having said that, it's been a great festival run. It's done a lot of festivals, more in 2021, a few, in Europe, which should be interesting, which it hasn't had a European premiere yet, which I don't know if it will translate because it's so specific, I think, to North American audiences. But I'm hoping, I don't know, do they give the wave in well, it's playing in Brussels in January or in April. So do they give the wave in Europe? I don't know. We'll find out.
I mean, I don't know, but I would assume I feel like it's kind of a universal thing. Like, you're driving along, someone needs to get into your lane, there's traffic, you let them in, you just give a little, like, hey, like, look in the
Yeah.
mirror, nod, or like a little like, hey, thanks for letting me in. Like, I feel like that's kind of like, it's almost like the thumbs up. Like, that's kind of like a universal, like,
Yeah.
hey, good job, or like, I'm okay.
Well, I hope
But
so. I hope so, or else it's going to fall really flat. Like, what is going on? We don't thank those people. We don't thank people when they let us in.
they're like, we can only relate to the anger part, not the
Yeah,
thank you part.
exactly. Exactly. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Awesome. Well, do you have any before we go, do you have any advice for people who are looking to get more into filmmaking and writing and directing? And what would your advice be to upcoming filmmakers?
Well, I mean, I think it really is just about I'm probably going to say all the cliche things that you hear from everybody else, but it really, for me and a lot of other people, it's true, which is, you just, I think you write something that you feel is personal and has a connection to you and really resonates with you, and that's the first step. I think there's a lot of people chasing something that isn't them. They see success in other filmmakers doing things that um, get a lot of attention and accolades for somebody else, and then they try and emulate that in a way. And I think that's a mistake. And I think you have to kind of stick to what everybody's got an experience in their lives that is unique and special in some way. And I think it's finding out how to tell that story. And I think it's the same for any kind of writing, but particularly for writer directors, because you have that vision and you can try and bring it to the screen, and it's your own vision, and it's something that if you're going to do it yourself and direct it yourself, it's going to be something that is purely you. So yeah, it's about, for me, it's finding that. And I didn't realize that till much later. And when you work in television a lot and you're doing assignments for other people, that's not the priority. Obviously, it's nice to bring a piece of you to those projects, but when it's solely your vision and your life experience, that's the most important thing, I think.
No, I think that's fantastic advice. And one last actual question before we really go. For any viewers who maybe can't get a chance to see this short film at HollyShorts, where will there be other opportunities in the future to see this online or in other festivals that are maybe coming up?
Well, there's festivals coming up that I, to be honest, I don't know what the status is of those. There's a few that I'm waiting to hear about, and in North America especially, and hopefully I think there's going to be a home for it, at a bunch of festivals. I know it is playing in a few European festivals in the new year, including the Brussels Short Film Festival, which was postponed from, they kind of postponed it from last year during the crisis or the pandemic. But also television in Canada, it's been sold to Canadian Reflections at CBC and GEM. And in the United States, we're looking for a good home, whether it's via an online streaming platform or TV. So that's kind of in the early stages. But my website, a simplefuckinggesture.com, should have updates of upcoming screenings and things like that.
Awesome. Well, Amazon or Netflix, if you happen to be listening.
I think it would be perfect on Netflix, Universal. Hit me up.
Well, congratulations on the success of the film. It was great. I loved it. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us this morning here at JeanBookNerd. We really appreciate it. And I wish you all the best of luck and success with your short film.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. It was great talking to you.
You as well. That's all for this episode, and remember to give someone a wave in traffic. You never know what the car behind you will be thinking if you don't, and let's be honest, it's such an easy thing to do. That's all for now, and I'll be back real soon with another episode of the podcast. Any final words for our listeners before we go, Jesse?
Hi, I'm Jesse Shamata. I'm the writer-director of A Simple Fucking Gesture, and you're listening to JeanBookNerd.com.